We should be able to use alternative forms of currency if we so choose. And the most obvious one is, why don't we start with gold and silver? It was good enough before. I don't personally agree that gold and silver is a great store of value. That's not my personal belief. But if that's what people want to use, let them use it. Start there, and then let people start to use whatever the hell they want to use.
This weekend, Argentinian President Milei gained office. He finally did it, and you might recall some of the big changes he wants to break. Now, this guy is, well, Shaq kind of labels himself as a libertarian. So this is what the media is called, Javier Milei, Argentinian libertarian economist, basically offered a warning in his speech yesterday that he had no alternative to a sharp, painful fiscal shock to fix the country's worst economic crisis in decades, inflation heading towards 200%. They've got to curb that. And he's saying, look, there's no alternative but to shock them. Well, the crowd's cheering. The crowd is really, really happy to hear this. And I kind of expect it, right? Because no pain, no gain. That's what's kind of what he's warning them about. Sure. He's been a very colorful character on television. He's got his expletive-ridden tirades against rivals, China, the Pope, taking over from the other leader, Alberto Fernandez, and that was dodged by failures in soaring prices. And he's looking at doing these big changes. Now, one of the big changes he said, as we mentioned last week, is that he wants to get rid of the central bank. Now, if he's successful in doing that, that's just huge. And you've got to wonder if that sets a precedent for other countries in similar situations where inflation is out of control. There's other things, of course, that he wants to change, but in that mix. But, yep, it's finally happening. He's come to power. Keep an eye on that space. It's going to be really interesting what happens from here.
Okay. No, look, I think so. Look,
sorry.
No, 200% inflation. I mean, come on.
What was Venezuela at the height of their socialism debacle?
Idea. Absolutely.
I've heard 14,000%, but I don't know how accurate that is.
So Argentina's been so mismanaged that I think what he's talking about as being libertarian is getting government off your back, getting rid of the regulations. Let's try and stabilize the currency. If the Reserve Bank is just printing all this money, let's stop them from having the ability to do that. There may be a little bit of pain for Argentina, but I think that Argentina will actually end up doing quite well out of this. And you watch this space. I really hope that Argentina does well, because it was once one of the wealthiest countries per capita.
Yeah.
And absolutely. I don't see any reason why they couldn't be again.
They've got a lot of natural resources, haven't they?
Of course they do. And look, if you tax resources properly, you can actually reduce your headline tax rates on personal income. You can reduce your headline tax rates on corporations. That's debatable whether or not you'd want to do that. But, you know, there are such great ways. But look at the Middle East. The Middle East taxes oil. Most Middle Eastern countries tax oil at 50%. But you don't have to pay personal income tax or very low levels of personal income tax in most Middle Eastern countries. So there are such great ways of being able to structure your economy, and Argentina's been structured incorrectly. I think that he's going to do very well. The big question is going to be what the supply of money is going to look like without a central bank. The central bankers of the world will say that that's not a sustainable system. I would say the actual flow and the supply of money should be determined by the free market. So let's see how that works in Argentina. I think that'll be very interesting, and it'll be very interesting to see how the Argentinian currency will be valued depending on its foreign holdings. What's really good, sorry to ramble on just for a moment longer, what's really good is if your economy is struggling, your currency will naturally devalue, making it cheaper for other countries to buy products from you, especially your labor. As your country becomes much stronger economically, your currency goes up, meaning it's cheaper for you to import goods and more expensive for other countries to buy from you. So a devaluation of the currency of Argentina at this particular moment may actually be of value to them so that they can attract that inward investment. But I think that Argentina is going to be looking very, very positive in the future. So definitely watch that space.
Oh, look, I absolutely agree
in terms of the monetary supply there, Shaq. Historically, we saw Abraham Lincoln issue the greenbacks back in the Civil War. and that was done by Treasury, if I remember correctly. What do you think is better? You said that it should be an independent body, but I mean, at what point do they become by the people, controlled by the people? At what point does that independent body is then taken over by those who've got hidden agendas or nefarious agendas for that country?
Yeah, so just to be clear, I didn't say it should be an independent body. I said the free market should determine it. So there shouldn't be a body, right? So we determine, for example, what the mid to longer term yield curve or yield rates are going to be by the buying and selling action of the free market. And I think that's what should happen with the real currency. I'll just come back to good old Abe Lincoln. Now, let's just remember that prior to that, there were banks all over the United States that were issuing their own currency. So it seems to me that we should be able to live in a world where people can use anything that they want to use as currency. If you don't have any faith in fiat currency anymore and you'd like to use alternatives, you should be able to do so as long as the other party is prepared to accept that. Now, back then they used to have different banks doing this. Now, what you actually see is a more digital form of what we saw a couple hundred years ago, which is the advent of all these cryptocurrencies. My theory is that it's only going to be a matter of time before big central banks will try to centralize those cryptos, that you can only have, these main ones, or you have to transact through the main ones. And as it is at the moment, you have to use on-ramps and off-ramps, right, to get your money in and out of these cryptos. So government still has some idea of what's going on. And with the collapse, which they all wanted, the collapse of some of these major players and some of the frauds that we saw, what that means is government's now going to step in to regulate in order to protect you. And this is the problem. So I think we should be able to use alternative forms of currency if we so choose. And the most obvious one is, why don't we start with gold and silver? It was good enough before. I don't personally agree that gold and silver is a great store of value. That's not my personal belief. But if that's what people want to use, let them use it. Start there, and then let people start to use whatever the hell they want to use. And
there's quite a movement of it, actually. Like right now, there's quite a movement of people using silver and gold. Absolutely.
Yeah. And if Coles and Woolies don't want to accept your gold coin, go somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Okay, the free market will determine that, won't they? I mean, if basically they want a customer, they're going to have to accept, what's available, or throw you out.
Josh did make a really good point. With so many people going to online shopping instead of doing it shopping in person, gold and silver is pretty hard to use. But my understanding, there's a gold, a cryptocurrency that's gold backed.
Yes,
that's a direct translation to gold, and there's also one for silver as well.
Yep.
So again, there are ways to do it. So I think one of the things I love about humans in general is if we want to do something, and there's a lot of people trying to get in our way to stop it, we'll find a way to.
Absolutely.
Like there's going to be some clever cookie who's going to go, you know what? Stuff the system.
Yeah,
I can do it this way, and this will work. And until that, I find that the government is constantly trying to warp and evolve to try and fill all the plugs to tell people, right, you have to go this way. Where people will instinctively just say, no, stuff you. I'm done. Do what I want. I'm going to live my own life, and I'm going to do what I can to tell the government to go stick it up their ass.
Yeah, Jurassic Park, mate. Nature will find a way, right? Okay, and like that, we are nature, human beings. We will find a way to get what we need done, and if people put roadblocks in our way, we'll get the hell around them, won't we?
Well, this is what we saw with like Uber and a number of other companies, right?
Yeah, good example.
They just broke the rules and then thought, well, we'll make enough money, we'll fight it and see if we can change the rules later. Again, this is the problem. Whose country is this? It's not the politicians. We need to get them out of the way. We need to start saying, what are you going to do? Are you going to arrest all of us? Is that what you're going to do? Maybe they will. Yeah. But look at what happened during COVID. I mean, people should have been absolutely horrified at what happened. And what were they going to do? Were they really going to arrest everybody in the country?
But we're a very compliant population. Remember that quote? That's from old Mal McGowan. Yeah, absolutely. We're a very compliant population.
Yeah, but that's WA. So for a long time, Australia has been the guinea pig
Absolutely.
if you will, for the world. Just heading back to Argentina, I'm really, really hoping this succeeds for them, because they can be the guinea pig this time. Like, I'm tired of being the guinea pig for the rest of the world. So I want Argentina to absolutely kick ass. I want them to be amazing. I want their economy to turn around, because I know a few Argentinians and they're hilarious. They're great people. So I want them to be on the world stage again as a power broker.
One of the things that I think is great for countries is to look at taxation and being competitive in relation to taxation, because when you end up attracting a whole heap of international investment. Ireland is a good example of that. I think Argentina, if they make themselves very competitive, could very, very quickly become the powerhouse in that region of the world. I would leave it at that.
Yeah, that's a top idea. I mean, you look at the UAE, places like that, attract so much, basically money to their country, because they're bringing a lot of people of great wealth who don't want to be losing all their money like they do here in Australia.
Look at Singapore in Australia.